Hello and welcome to episode 112 of the Building Sustainability Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Hart, and every fortnight join me as I talk to designers, builders, makers, dreamers, and doers. Together, we can explore the wide world of sustainability in the built environment by talking to wonderful people who are doing excellent things. So this is part 2 of my chat with Vanessa Champion. It's a bit more materials focused, example projects, sustainability, interior landscapers. Is it a trend? We also talk about the Journal for Biophilic Design, which is excellent. There's a link in the show notes, of course. That's all for me. Get straight into it. I'll be back at the end. Enjoy. One of the things I wanted to ask you, and this is a very, this is me satisfying my own sort of work feelings, but I think biophilia, we talk a lot about greenery and about plants and about leaves and, the trees. It was good to hear you mention clay and, earth. Because I wondered, a lot of my work is around clay plasters or earthen floors, and less about the greenery, more about the brownery is what I'm kind of interested in, and so interested to know if there's sort of much research in terms of clay and earth in terms of benefits, because I could bore everyone senseless with how physically, an earth plaster is physically incredible for your health. So I'm hoping that you're going to say it's incredible for your mind as well.
Well, yes, it's definitely incredible for your mind. It's interesting. I actually don't know of much research that's been done. And when you asked me that question, I'm thinking there was something I read and I can't remember where it was. And it was something to do with people had looked at I think it was actually in Africa, where they was using kind of local clay, local materials, and the difference it made to like people studying and things. But I can't remember. I'm sure it was in Africa and not in South America. I need to look that one up actually. But that's a really good question. But I'm definitely with you on the whole. Biophilic design isn't just about greenery, isn't just about plants and leaves and trees and flowers and all these sort of things. It's actually about the natural materials. It's funny actually because people do talk about wood buildings, so people are kind of moving away from just talking about plants and greenery, but actually talking now about wood tables, wood materials, wood construction, wood. But not a lot of people are talking about earth. And about clay and clay finishes. I know. Do you know Bjorn Beyer? He's. I know Sven Beyer, who's the potter, the ceramicist. Yeah, and I know he does cob buildings, and I've sort of was exposed to cob building concept through Sven and his son, and when I found out how simple it is and how eco-friendly it is, and how, because we know that rounded shapes are good for us. We know that from an environmental psychology point of view. There's loads of research to show that unstraight lines are good for us. We know that curves are good for our brains. We know that even if we just go back to the biophilic thing, is this sort of this thing called sort of mystery, where we create these lines that kind of move and sort of undulate, but take us around a corner where we can't really see. If you think about in nature, nothing's got straight lines, nothing's straight, everything's wonky. And so we know from an environmental psychologist, there's lots of research. Actually, if you go to the spacedoctors.com, there's an iJournal on there, and you can actually search for research on there for curves. If you just put curves in, so there'll be loads that comes up for that. And I think there's stuff on there about earth buildings. I do need to look up. I actually run that with Dr. Sally Augustine, who's one of the leading environmental psychologists. And that's really interesting. Actually, I need to look that up. I was also going to say about mushrooms and things like that, where I went to the workplace event a few months ago in London at the Business Design Centre, and upstairs there was the research design people, and they had these mycelium panels. And oh my God, Jeffrey, they were like, as you touch them, they were like velvet. And that for me fascinates me. It's like I said, they're marvelous acoustic panels, and they were using it for like all different things as well, kind of vessels and things. But I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is for a tactile kind of soft finish. They're fantastic. They're using mushrooms, so the mycelium kind of thing. So yeah, I'm definitely advocate more than just plants and greenery and clay and earth. So yeah, I'd love to chat more about that sometime. Actually, maybe on our podcast, Jeffrey.
We'll do the return leg. Uh,
Yeah,
yes, I think the mushroom mycelium it's such an exciting thing, and I feel like I've been saying that for a few years, and it hasn't quite ramped up the way I hoped it would. But it seems to me
no,
like they could be an absolute wonder material, both in terms of sort of carbon, but also in terms of the sensory benefits.
yeah, absolutely. And I do wonder, it's like with hempcrete and sort of alternative concrete. It's like oh hemp, oh it's made out of that hippie stuff, and oh mushrooms, oh it's made out of that hippie stuff. It's like it's like changing mindsets again, isn't it? There's like it's amazing even when it's been so hard to kind of convince people that we need plants in the workplace, and there's still like old school businesses that's like, no, I don't want that in here because that's like fluffy. It's like, and do you know what I mean? It's like it's sort of which is it's like changing. It's changing mindsets, isn't it? It's changing and encouraging people to access and experience, and then there'll be a change. But yeah, I think the more they're exposed to it, and the more it's in, and I think that's another reason why it's really important to get things like these sort of mushrooms or hempcrete or the other alternatives, and like you say, the brownery, clay building materials, to get them actually into mainstream events like the construction week and all this sort of stuff. These construction things, because there's otherwise we all end up talking in silos again. So yeah, we need to get more of the eco side of things in these like mainstream spaces. Yeah, I was media partner for a workplace event in the NEC, and alongside it was also the health and safety kind of thing. I mean, it was all like, like, what am I doing here? I'm so different, but obviously I was talking about biophilic design of the built environment, construction, yada yada. And there's people, and all I've got are pictures of trees behind me. That's it. Like, I've got the Journal of Biophilic Design, pictures of trees, and people don't even know what it is. It's like, what's this? I've got like a facts and figures thing, a pop-up banner next to me that's got like, oh, if we have plants in the built environment, we know that it reduces, antisocial behaviour by 80%. Oh, okay, then they get that. But the people who came there, and I won't mention any names, but these were like humongous construction companies and really big, mainstream purveyors of pollution as well. And they were like, well, what's this then? What's this? What is this? And and it's because you're in random places that people go, oh, okay, so because you're here, you must be in our tribe, so therefore I'll kind of listen. So I think, I know that's not your question, but it's also, I think that there's a case to making sure that there's representation of us in these places where people are not expecting us to be, and being presented in a way that it's like, oh, okay, this is cool, yeah, I get this, because then that's probably the only way. It's like with our conference that we're going to have, it's like, who do I invite? And you've got to make sure you invite your enemy as well, haven't you? so they're in the room. We can all have this
Very much
conversation.
so. So we were talking. We sort of moved on quite nicely onto the workplace, and I wanted to ask you. There was a thing, one of the Zoom regeneratives with Martin Brown a few years ago. The sort of topic was, is biophilic design the special source for sort of solving climate crisis? And I thought it was an interesting proposition because I think you said that sort of biophilic design of plants could increase productivity by 50%, or double it. I forget the stat. I'm terribly sorry, but I wondered, what if the baddies use it? What if the big oil companies start putting biophilic design all around their offices? Will they get better at destroying the world, or is it
Oh,
that that by being surrounded by plants that they might have a conscience and and actually sort of appreciate what's around them?
yeah, it's a really good question, a really, really good question. Um, we know that people being surrounded by nature and plants are more empathetic. They tend to then act a little bit more ethically. Like you say, it kind of sparks the conscience. Being surrounded by the beauty of nature and that flourishing again does have a positive impact. Yes, I see what you mean about the whole. Yeah, imagine if they got surrounded by all this beauty and then they're just more productive and they're kind of like more. But I think, yeah, I think again it's the joined up effect though, isn't it? It's the joined up, messaging that the people who work there are exposed to the damage they cause, and when that's combined with the beauty of nature that's around them, if they visually see, like the oil spill or the destruction of the trees and all this kind of stuff on one time, and then they go back to the office and they're seeing all this beauty around them and they're thinking, well, hang on a minute, that has to that has to have an impact on people. I mean, the people that do these things anyway, I mean, I think their brains are just wired differently because they just can't have the empathy that or the ethic. I don't know what I don't know. I really don't know actually. It's also I've had conversations with I had a conversation with one particular person who works for one of the oil companies, and they honestly, genuinely believed that they were trying to mitigate the destruction that they'd caused, or they were doing, and they actually. But this is what again it's tough, isn't it? It's a really tough one, and it's hard not to feel emotional when we're talking about it. To be honest, so yeah, and there's another company that I'm speaking to who are also, again, I can't mention what it is, but it's in an industry that is quite contentious, and their offices are amazing and beautiful, and yet they still continue operating in the way that they do that's destructive to people there. So yeah, it's a hard one actually. But I suppose we can, one thing that we can take, I suppose, that if the staff that work in there who have to work there because I can't find any other job, although I would probably argue that you probably can find another job and you have a choice where you work, but at least because obviously they're often tasked with impossible KPIs and all that sort of stuff. At least they won't be destroying them. They won't be destroying their staff as well as the planet. But yeah, it's that's a really good question, Jeffrey, and one that deserves a bit more philosophizing around it. But yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go away and think about that one and actually spark some debates. That's a really good question. Thank you.
Oh, well, great. I mean, I suppose it sort of leads on to thinking about how biophilic design, sort of beyond just inspiring people, is there a direct crossover in sort of fighting climate change or kind of making more resilient cities, places? Do the two go hand in hand?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, yeah, definitely resilient and also regenerative cities. So, places that create regeneration. It's not just about, I mean, and we can't talk about sustainability anymore. I don't think we have to talk about regenerative building solutions, that we leave a place better than when we left it, that we plant more trees, that we create spaces that are actually going to support us. So, there's a whole thing about like when we green a city, do we create sink cities? So that's like these places for creating runoff, planting trees and these kind of areas alongside sidewalks, sort of pavements, which there's like a dip, but there's all planting in there that when there's a flood or when there's like excess rain, which is what we're experiencing as a result of climate change, that there's somewhere for it to go, that it doesn't just cause flooding in the city or it just runs off into the poor communities, which is what's often happened because they're often built and the house pricing and the rent and everything else that tends to be cheaper because there's a reason for it. But these creating these like bat boxes and all this kind of thing where we create more life in the city. There's definitely a move towards that amongst designers, and also the Biophilic design consultants, where they're talking about creating, how do we create this like a new build, like these new build housing estates, which we could talk about. We could have a whole debate about housing estates and how they're built, but they do have sustainability managers and sort of things, and they are trying their best with again, it comes down to the bean counters, but how much are we going to get out of this real estate? But we also know through the economics of biophilic design that real estate value goes up, and they can sell the houses quicker, and they can sell the properties quicker if there's greenery around them. So there's an economic argument. But obviously, if we're creating spaces where there's properly thought out spaces for with ponds, and so you've got proper sort of biodiversity. You're encouraging biodiversity. You're creating pollinating plant areas. You're encouraging children to understand it. There's so many things you can do, so there's more of that happening, definitely. And there's people like Green Gauge that are advising people, like large companies like British Land, and they're really successful in creating roof gardens now, where there's obviously pollination and stuff on the roof and plants, and also places for people to go and enjoy it as well, which again adds to that what you're saying about the sort of question about, does that encourage more sustainable behavior? It really does. So because people get to enjoy it, and there's not a disconnect. We all feel part of it, and it encourages more conversations as well, doesn't it, where people go, oh yeah, great. And then a lot of these places as well, they have someone come and speak and talk about how to beekeep, or why it's important, or the plants and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot more stuff that's going on, and I'm taking heart. I mean, when I first started this, there was hardly anything really, and just over the last 2 years particularly, that the whole conversation about biophilic design is also shifting towards the sustainability. It's always been there, but I'm just saying about more and more people are understanding that it's also a sustainable solution to meet sustainable building targets. It's like the Green Building Challenge and all these things, which all sort of tied in with biophilia, and the groups like Living Future Europe, like you mentioned, and Martin Brown, and yeah. So I think the more we do, the more we talk, the more we chat, and the more we celebrate as well, the more we see visuals of these great examples of biophilic design in the built environment, the more people will go, well, they're doing it, we need to do it. I like that solution, I'm going to do it. So yeah, it's definitely I think I did a podcast actually with Chris Packham.
Oh wow.
And he was kind of saying, well, why isn't every new build, and I'm so with him on it, but why isn't every new build, we could do it so much better, why doesn't every new build have like bat boxes and sort of bird bricks and bee nests and stuff? You can do these things. You really can. And it's just, ultimately, what is it? It's a molded brick. And, what's it going to put? Like another 20 quid on the price of a property? Ultimately, that's all it is materials, isn't it? And just time, £100 per brick. But ultimately, it's going to make a massive example. Anyway, I don't know. So I'm trying to analyse how much it's going to cost them. But if it's done at scale, then it's not going to cost that much. So yeah. Anyway,
yeah, there has to be that want, doesn't there?
Yeah, it does, and it comes down to the consumer. It comes down to the consumer demanding, something different. But also, people don't understand that they have a choice as well. They don't know what they need until they need it, until they know what it is, if you know what I mean. Which is why it's important to share the love. Like stuff like you're doing here is really important. The podcast you're doing is so important, because the more people understand and learn and get inspired by, the more they'll have more conversations elsewhere. And then that will have a knock-on effect down the supermarket and everywhere else that they might go. And it's important to keep making sure that we're all at the table, where everybody is at the table, to talk and discuss, and to plan and to design better, really.
Brilliant. Yes, couldn't agree more. I wanted to ask you if you had any really great project examples that people could go and maybe have a look at, or that you could maybe just sort of discuss things that were sort of exciting in the biophilic design world.
Yeah, well, one of them was actually done in a workplace. It's by a company in New Zealand called Outside In, and it does what it says on the tin. It brings the outside in. They're a landscape company. They won the Biophilic Design Awards in 2022. It's how come I knew about it, actually, because I was a judge on the awards. But I featured it in the workplace issue. Basically, it was a law company, and the owner of the legal company in New Zealand, she took herself off into New Zealand. She was walking, she was in the countryside. It was like, amazing landscapes. So anyone's been to New Zealand, all the rocks and the air and the wildness and the planting and the earth. And she came back to her office after she'd sort of done her trekking, and she thought, well, hang on, this is horrible. But the office is awful. And so she had the foresight to think, how can we create that, what I've just felt, in here? So she reached out to a couple of designers, and the one that won the contract then appointed Outside In to be the landscaper, the interior landscaper. And you have to look at it. So again, I did a podcast with him. So you can go to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast page and look at, or just Google Outside In. But they created this. All I can say is it's a landscaped office. There's the curving lines. All the planting is against the windows. Obviously, because no plant would survive if it's in the darkness. And again, that's also why I think, why the hell do we put people actually inside and interiors in buildings? Whereas we think, oh no, the plants don't flourish, but people are okay. So, but this whole landscape area, there's beautiful trees. There's which are, because it's against the window. If you imagine this building, there's like a big hole in the center where the glass goes. It's a bit like a donut. It's like a square donut, if you want. So there's light going all the way through the center. So there's lots of walls that have got bring in lots of natural light. But the plants, of course, then, as the light comes in, will create this dappled shade, which is what we talk about, this non-rhythmic sensory stimuli in biophilic design, which is this natural stuff where the sort of dappled diffusion of light comes through. And you've got this the non-rhythmic movement, so there's sort of the randomization of leaves as well. But it's beautifully done, and you get the benefit as well of the smell of the earth. We know that the earth of plants cleans air, and that's, I didn't even mention that. Oh my goodness, that's like a major thing. But the purification of air with plants in a space is so important, and that helps our cognitive function as well. It helps our brains, gets oxygen down us. Obviously we're breathing carbon dioxide out, and even with the best HVAC system, it still leaves. That's why we're tired when we're in a workplace, but at the end of the day we're like we're like super tired, because the air quality is rubbish. So we need more plants in the office to improve the air quality, let alone acting as natural acoustic barriers, if we can put it in the right places. But this Outside In is beautiful. It's really, really worth looking at. There's lots of natural wood in the space. There's like little zones, and what I really love about it, and again, this is, you asked me earlier on, and I don't think I answered properly, but you asked about something that isn't done a lot, one of these kind of unusual kind of patterns of biophilic design. It's about undulation. It's about this kind of the sort of appropriation. I've forgotten to say that. Appropriation? I've forgotten the word. Anyway, but it's about how it's about how landscape, or the space moves up and down. So if you think about when you go out in nature, unless you're on an asphalt pathway, which is all completely flat, it's not flat. So you have to step over, stones, and Do you know what I mean? You go up and down slightly. The land isn't completely flat, so it's about replicating that in the workplace, and they've done exactly that in this space as well. So, again, through zoning and the actual landscaping of the interior spaces of the plants, at different heights and things. It's a fantastic example.
It sounds fantastic. I think the thing that's really jumped out at me there is that I've never heard the title interior landscaper before, and I mean it seems so obvious. Now you've said it. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah, exactly. And and I think that's also a trend. Like, so the traditional plant companies, while some of them still just put pot plants in, and it's just like, I'm just putting some pot plants in, and we're going to manage that for you. There's a whole trend, which is very welcome, where people are thinking differently. They're hanging baskets and hanging plants down stairwells. There's such a trend for living walls as well. Daniel Bell is a great example to look at. He uses recycled clothing in his living walls, and he doesn't use soil. So the plants themselves actually start, drilling their little feet into the fabric of these recycled felt. And he just literally staples it in. I again did a podcast with him over Zoom actually, and he goes, "Hang on a minute, I'm just going to show you how I do it." And he literally just stapled these plants in, and it's so low tech, but he's done amazing, and all around London, in King's Road, everywhere. But it's they're phenomenal, and what he does as well, because he's such an artist. He's such a, his spirit is so like connected to the earth, and he's pushing boundaries all the time. So he puts even like trees, like mini trees in these living walls. It's so out there, but so beautiful and so sustainable. And they all thrive and they all live. So, the plants are really like successful. Different textures, juniper. So there's different smells, different so baby's tears and all that kind of thing. So different leaf shapes and colours and smells and flowers. And it's beautiful. It's so flamboyant. It doesn't have to just be green. It doesn't have to be just one type of plant. It can be so much better. So, but yeah. So just going back again. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but the whole interior landscaping kind of concept is really coming into its own right now, I think. I do just want to mention one more example, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Jeffrey. And that's the Khu Tek Puat Hospital in Singapore. That's KHOO Tech TECK and then PUAT Hospital in Singapore. If people haven't seen it, as an example of like how we should be designing biophilic designed hospitals, is definitely one to look at. We have featured it actually in the healthcare issue of the Journal of Biophilic Design. It's issue 3. But oh my word, there's lots of visuals in there actually, but there's the walkways have got planting. It's like walking through a jungle, but like a controlled jungle, so it feels safe. There's a bit of what we'd call sort of mystery and risk and peril, if you want, in biophilic design. But you're like encased, and there's like beautiful trees like the maples, which obviously change in the different seasons. There's windows that look out onto nature in the wards themselves. So they've created like these little ashtrays, if you want, that sit on the outside of the building. So people inside the wards have a view of leaves and greenery, which frame their outlook onto, and obviously it's like it's a high-rise building. So as they're looking out onto the sky or wherever it is, they've got like little plants around them. And of course, the air quality is fantastic. There's a water it's big load. There's a load of water that's outside, so obviously the air that filters into the space and around it is clear. It's more purified, as it were. But then it's beautiful. It's just beautiful to look. There's a smell from scented plants. You've got the sound of falling water as well, and of course you have the visual access to greenery and water. It's like a sort of rainforest, and there's obviously biodiversity as well. There's plants and birds and butterflies and insects and things. So, and then because it encourages that community, what was I talking about, the sociability, this kind of social aspect of biophilic design, of biophilia, this connection to life, by creating these community spaces, these public spaces, these like mini parks for people to come to. It's just, it was CPG Consultants who created it. And it's just really, it just sort of helps medical staff and recovery of patients. And it's just like, if ever I get sick, I want to be there. I want to be in that hospital. I definitely don't want to be in one in the UK.
That sounds absolutely delightful. I wanted to ask you, you said a word back in when you were talking about the previous project that I think you said there's a trend of doing this a particular way. What would you say to people that maybe think that biophilic design is itself a trend? Like that we're gonna, this will be yesterday's sort of news at some point in the future.
I think that, I mean, whether it will be, I don't know, but I think right at the moment it's kind of it's joining up. So biophilic design is really joining up all the different elements. It's joining up, sustainable design. It's eco building, vernacular building, well-being, health and well-being, mental health design. It's really it's joining all those things up. So it's like an overarching, I suppose it's like it's like the granddaddy of all the other trends, if you want, or all the other labels. And I suppose biophilic design, because there's, using that term, there's so much evidence that's kind of being assigned to it and to the term. It's really useful for other design practices to kind of say, well, look, this is actually part of biophilic design. It's actually this inherent need for us to be connected to nature. It's like everything, we're all doing the same thing. We're all creating spaces and places for people and planet. And biophilic design is really just the overarching term for all of that. Whether it will come and go, who knows? I think the fact that it's being embraced more on design courses, university courses, it's actually in policy in the government now. There's more lobbyists using the term biophilic design. I suppose it's kind of like using a joined up term for something that marries everything together, if you know what I mean. And it's not like us and them. It's not you and me. It's actually the whole thing. It's like an ecosystem in itself. That sort of biophilic design sits. It's just a word. It's just the term, really, and everything else cascades kind of below it, if you know what I mean, and sort of feeds into it. When I say below it, I don't mean that in like it's under it. I mean it's like it's like the roots of biophilic design. So it's just like that's the term, but everything that everybody else is doing in sustainability and well-being design and everything else all feeds in to, I suppose it's like a tree. This is now getting really conceptual, but like biophilic design is like the tree, and all the design practices are like the mycelium, which are like doing all this amazing, brilliant stuff. But biophilic design is like a term that I don't know, that kind of, it's like an overarching term that like bean counters and government and businesses and everybody can kind of get and understand. I don't think it's going to go. I hope it isn't going to go. If it does, I hope it's replaced with something equally amazing. And maybe ultimately the dream would be that we don't need these terms. We don't need sustainable building. We don't need eco building. We don't need biophilic design. It just is. We just design how we're supposed to design. And that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that would be the ultimate. That's the ultimate.
Yeah. We'll just call it building, call it
Yeah,
designing.
exactly. And because we're building better, we're just building the way we should be bloody building in the first place. So yeah, there we go. There's a dream. There's a dream. We don't need the terms
Yes.
at all. So yeah.
Make us redundant.
Well, yeah, because we'll be doing it, but we won't be redundant. Really, we'll be flourishing because they'll need us because we're the ones who know what we're doing. So, yeah.
That's true. So I wanted to finish. We've obviously mentioned the journal quite a lot. I wanted to talk about the journal. I mean, it's fantastic. It's so chocked full of, all of the different avenues. I particularly like the sort of research backed section, because I think for me that's really sort of what makes biophilic design stand out, is that it is backed up with science. But could you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the topics that you've covered and some that you're going to in the future?
So every issue has a different theme. We've had healthcare, workplace, home, cities, creativity, blue mind. The next one coming out is education. Then there's well-being and neurodiversity and environment and everything else. But that's at the front of each issue. And then, as you said, Jeffrey, and thanks for those nice words, but there's the science behind biophilic design. And as I mentioned, Dr. Sally Augustin is our science editor. So she kind of trawls and writes about biophilia, and there's loads of evidence, and there's other psychologists or scientists or researchers that write about why we need it from an acoustic point of view and everything else. Then there's a section on well-being as well. So that talks about why we need nature for our mental health, as well as, like, as I said, neurodiversity and air quality, all different aspects actually of why biophilic design is really good for us. About that innate connection. We also talk a bit about naturopathy, so about how plants can help us heal. So it's really like that, and just really, really, really drilling down into that innate connection that we have with nature, and that we've always had with nature, that we've forgotten about. That I'm just the whole point of putting it in is really just to resurrect that interest and resurrect that sort of, oh my goodness, yeah, exactly. Even had a doctor from Harley Street who wrote about that connection and why we need that connection to nature. There's also a section on plants, as you'd expect, but we have people like Plants at Work who write for us each month and celebrate one particular plant and how not to kill it. But then there's examples as well of, like, case studies of how it's been used in like whether it's healthcare or whatever the different situation is, what a different theme of the journal is. There's also the environment, people and planet section, where we talk about things like for instance, in the healthcare one, we talk about the NHS Forest, which is a project or a program that the NHS work with these groups that build, plant forests near and trees near the hospitals. So it's a community thing, but it also means that people on their walk to their journey to the hospital have a better space and place to kind of experience. Right to roam, that kind of thing, why we need to have access to land, why it's important to us. And there's also political elements in there, I'm not going to lie. We do have a diplomat that writes for us there in each issue as well. He's a leading environmentalist, Alexander Verbeek. He always writes something about the state of the nation, as it were, state of the world. And then there's always a section at the end, because I think it's really important, about biophilic cities, why we design cities for the health of people as well as the planet. Green space, tiny forests, that kind of stuff. I did want to mention one thing that's really good is the Miyawaki method. So if people are thinking about building a little forest or something or they've got a little area, you can put a mini forest. And Miyawaki was a Japanese designer, or was a landscape but he said, well, hang on a minute, why are we planting trees like spaced out like this? And his method is actually looking at how nature designs forests, which is, how does nature design forests? Well, they have like seeds everywhere, and it's really dense planting, and then it's not like survival of the fittest, but it means that they grow and they nurture each other so that they need less water, so it's sustainable. Just stuff like that we feature in the journal. So it's to inspire people as well as to connect people. So anyone who's doing good, we're always open to ideas and suggestions. If someone's got a great project, or have a design method that fits the biophilic thing, is green, is natural, and connects us to nature in some way, then I'm always open for that too. But yeah, so the ones coming up, as I said, it's one on education. Some really great examples in there about how designing schools with like places for kids to play outside, and to encourage them to create outdoor classrooms so that people are outside having their lessons as well. Even if it's raining, you create like spaces for them to be so that they're sheltered. It's phenomenal. It gives these kids, like, we know that it improves their scores. Having wood desks makes them add up better than having plastic desks. Stuff like that, Like, come on, people. So that's what I'm doing. And then we've got the conference first week of November 2024 as well. So where we're pulling everybody together. As I said, it's not us and them. It's everybody. It's one big family of people doing good. So Jeffrey, you're coming and you're going to speak. I've decided. So there we go.
you try and keep me away. That's brilliant. Yeah, it's interesting, like you were saying about the education. Like we're just starting a craft school here in the woods, and we've been talking about how we've been talking about it in a sort of marketing way, actually, but how do we tell people about these courses and sort of sell all of the benefits that they're really getting, because they might be coming to carve a spoon, or do something physical and hands-on, but they're also spending time in the woods, and the bird song and the leaves in the trees, rustling in the trees, and there's this whole extra layer of thing they're getting from it that actually it's quite easy to forget and just be quite mechanical and say, you'll chop a bit of wood up.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. So you're getting more kids to come along. Is it for adults as well? Because it's the carving a spoon would be something I'd like to do.
predominantly adults, actually. There's going to be
yay.
in the future a sort of forest school element to it. Particularly where we want to get to is actually providing a space for the kind of kids on their last chance from school. The sort of air quotes unruly ones, but the ones who really just don't thrive in that pretty stuffy, horrible classroom setting. So give them all of the benefits of the outside and running around with a stick and feeling all of those benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing that. I love that. I love being outside and doing something, whether it's, foraging, which I don't do very well, but so I don't eat anything I've collected just in case. But making stuff outside, collecting leaves and tying them to a thing that creates a mobile and just stuff. It's just lovely to be outside and touching nature and touching this beautiful planet that we share. We're sharing our lives with. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the podcast as well? Or I guess sort of wanted to finish with just where can people find more? Yeah. So books, podcasts, websites,
Okay, lovely. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. So if people want to find out a little bit more, they can go to the Journal of Biophilic Design.com. You can also find us on Spotify, Audible, YouTube, all the things, Stitcher, and all the other ones, iTunes, Google, this, that, and the other. But if you go to our website, there's loads of resources on there. As I said, there's also an iJournal where you can create your own research journal. On the Space Doctors, it's a kind of our sister company. So you go to the science behind biophilic design on the top tab of our website, and then you can just put your whatever you're trying to search in there, like, put, as I said, like curves, and it will create your own research journal as a result of that. But then there's the conference as well. So there's please sign up for notifications. It's going to be first week of November 2024. It'll be in London, the first one. And there's lots of people come, British Institute of Interior Designers and Wildlife Trust and the NHS and just people doing amazing stuff. So it's kind of bridging research and best practice. So again, so we're not siloed, so we're all together. We can all be in the room together. Hoping to get some MPs in there as well, which would be quite an interesting one. And then obviously the journal itself, you can buy on Amazon, but don't buy it on there because it does cost a fortune, because that's how much it costs to print, unfortunately, with them. But you can buy it on our website, the journal of Biophilic.Design.com. Go to the Journal of Biophilic Design tab, or our shop tab, and you can buy a hard copy, which is beautiful. It's all eco-friendly and natural inks and stuff. And it's really big. It's about 1 centimetre thick because it's hard to see it online. It's beautiful. Or you can buy just an ebook version. It's on Kindle as well. So if it's on there, you can get it with your Kindle subscription. So yeah, and thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thanks for your support and thanks for inviting me on. I really, really appreciate it. And I value everything that you're doing and the inspiration that you're giving people with your podcast and also the work you're doing too. So brilliant. So hats off to you.
Oh, well, very much right back at you. I've previously been reading the online, not the online, the PDF edition of the journal, and I've just decided I'm going to buy a whole load of the printed ones and have them on my coffee table.
Oh, thank you. They are lovely. They're a biophilic. I've done it deliberately, so it's a biophilic experience with all leaves and trees and things on the edge of pages, so people are touching the plants. And I've had the feedback where people have said, well, I only normally read like 10, 20 pages if you're lucky, but I've read 80 pages, outright. So there's about 230 pages in nearly every issue, so there's quite a lot there.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Vanessa, for talking to me. I've genuinely not felt this connected and part of something really big and important for a long time. I've been feeling actually quite outside of all of that. So it's really fantastic to speak to someone like Vanessa, who is gathering in all these people and kind of giving them a home and a focus. I'm such a big fan of what she's doing on all fronts, and I urge you to get involved and read the journal, listen to the podcast, go to the conference. You might even see me there. Yeah, such good things. So this episode, I have put some links. We start with Bjorn Bayer. I knew I recognised that name. It's Bare Natural Building. He is to come along to the Bristol Spoon Club. Hello Bjorn, I hope you're listening. Sorry I didn't recognise your name necessarily at first. A link to the Space Doctors, to mycelium panels. There's a link to Zoom Regenerative, which is a lovely gathering of minds. Green Gauge Environmental Consultants, the Green Building Challenge. We've talked about that on this podcast. Maybe have a search on the website if you want to see that. There is links to example projects that were discussed. The Outside In project, goodness me, you've got to go look at that. That is so gorgeous. Yeah, such a delightful space. Definitely look at that. And then the Kutech Hospital, links to that as well. Daniel Bell, Living Wall, link to his website. The NHS Forest, the Right to Roam campaign. I've also put a link to the podcast with Nick Hayes that we did for this podcast way back when the Right to Roam project was maybe not even started yet. And there's also a link to the Miyawaki Forests. So that is it from me. If you have enjoyed this podcast, then please do subscribe. Head back through, listen to all the episodes. Let me know what you think. If you really like it, then support the podcast through Patreon, patreon.com/building sustainability. That would be really appreciated. It does take quite a long time and quite a lot of effort to make this podcast and has not inconsiderable running costs. So your support would be really, really appreciated. And if you go for the higher level, I will carve you a spoon. I think that's it. Oh, yes, share the episode. I nearly always forget that. If you've got this far, then you are clearly part of the A team. Really cement your place. That's a terrible term. Really secure your place in the A team by sharing this to all your friends. Tag me in it on either Jeffrey the Natural Builder or Building Sustainability Podcast, and it will make me really happy. Okay, everybody, until next time, all the best.